When we think of African horror stories, we picture ancient spirits and whispered legends. But some of the continent's darkest tales are not myths, they are history. Beneath the folklore lies a chilling reality, a genocide in Namibia deliberately buried by the world. The Herero and Nama people faced a horror more terrifying than any fabled beast, one orchestrated by humans, not monsters. German colonial ambition shattered their lives, turning their land into a stage for systematic annihilation. This is not a ghost story, but the ghosts of its victims still cry out for justice. The early 20th century saw European powers carve up Africa, with Germany eager to assert dominance in southwest Africa. German settlers arrived, disrupting centuries-old harmony and setting the stage for tragedy. This history, hidden beneath global conflicts and silence, challenges our understanding of the 20th century. The horrors of that era began not in Europe, but in the colonies, on the bodies of black and brown people. To understand the present, we must have the courage to unearth these painful truths. Before colonization, Southwest Africa was a tapestry of cultures. Herero cattle herders and Nama traders, both with rich traditions and deep ties to the land. German settlers arrived in the 1880s, bringing rifles and a sense of superiority. Trade gave way to exploitation. Land and cattle were seized through debt and force. The Herero and Nama saw their autonomy eroded, their lands fenced off, and their people humiliated. The colonial administration sided with settlers, treating the indigenous as obstacles. By 1904, the Herero, led by Samuel Maharero, reached a breaking point and rose up, not in aggression, but in desperate resistance. Their uprising targeted German outposts, sparing women and children. They fought for dignity and survival, unaware of the inhuman response that awaited. Their defiance would be met with a brutality that would stain history forever. News of the Herero uprising shocked Berlin. For the German Empire, rebellion was an insult that demanded ruthless suppression. Enter General Lothar von Trotha, infamous for his brutality. He was sent not to negotiate, but to annihilate. Von Trotha saw the Herero as a threat to be erased, not pacified. He brought reinforcements and a philosophy of total war, making no distinction between fighters and civilians. His strategy: encircle the Herero, crush them in battle, and eliminate survivors. In August 1904, at Waterberg, German forces cornered the Herero: men, women, children, and cattle. Artillery and machine guns overwhelmed the Herero, but von Trotha's true plan was just beginning. Survivors were not pursued for capture. Instead, escape routes were sealed, except one, into the deadly Omaheke Desert. This was not just a battle, but the opening act of genocide. The desert would become the Germans' most lethal weapon. With the Herero driven into the desert, von Trotha issued his infamous extermination order in October 1904. The order declared every Herero, armed or not, would be shot within German borders. Women and children were no exception. This was not war. It was a death sentence for an entire people. Soldiers were told to patrol the desert's edge, shoot any Herero who returned, and poison waterholes. The desert itself became the instrument of genocide. Diaries from German soldiers reveal a great hunt, where killing became routine. The Herero were stripped of humanity, treated as vermin to be eradicated. Though Berlin later rescinded the order, the damage was done. Tens of thousands had already perished. The extermination order stands as one of history's most explicit genocidal commands. It was a blueprint for horrors yet to come. The Omaheke Desert became a vast graveyard for the Herero. Driven by thirst and starvation, families collapsed under the relentless sun. Poisoned waterholes extinguished hope. Mothers watched their children die in their arms. German patrols shot any who tried to return. There was no escape. The desert was littered with bodies and cattle, a testament to calculated extermination. Survivors who reached British Bechuanaland told stories of unimaginable suffering. By 1905, tens of thousands were dead. The Herero nation was shattered. Only a few survived, carrying the trauma with them. The silence that followed was the silence of the grave. Survivors of the desert were herded into concentration camps, death camps in all but name. Places like Shark Island became infamous for starvation, disease, and forced labour. Mortality rates soared. The camps continued the genocide by other means. Women suffered sexual violence. Children and elders died from neglect. German scientists, led by Eugen Fischer, used prisoners for racist experiments, seeking to prove African inferiority. Skulls of the dead were cleaned and shipped to Germany for study, a grotesque act of dehumanization. Herero women were forced to prepare these remains, compounding their trauma. Thousands of skulls became trophies of colonial science, linking Namibia's genocide to later horrors in Europe. The camps were not just sites of death, but laboratories for racial ideology. The legacy of this cruelty would echo into the 20th century. After the genocide, silence descended. Germany had no interest in exposing its crimes, and the world looked away. The First World War shifted attention. Southwest Africa passed to South African control, and the genocide faded from memory. Survivors were left without land, justice, or recognition, their trauma denied, their history erased. General von Trotha died, celebrated, never held accountable. For decades, the Herero and Nama genocide was a forgotten precedent, a ghost in history. Only in recent decades did activists and descendants begin to uncover the truth. They pieced together archives, oral histories, and the skulls still held in Germany. Their fight was not just for recognition, but for dignity and justice. The world was forced to confront the first genocide of the 20th century. Restoring memory became an act of resistance. When trauma is too great for words, it seeps into folklore. In southern Africa, the Tokoloshe, a feared, invisible creature, embodies unspoken fears. The Tokoloshe's chaos and violation mirror the colonial terror inflicted by the Germans. For the Herero and Nama, the colonial regime was a force that invaded homes and lives, much like the Tokoloshe. Folklore became a coded language for horrors that could not be named. These stories are containers for generational trauma, preserving memory when history is silent. The fear of the Tokoloshe is the inherited fear of arbitrary violence and powerlessness. Folklore became the archive of the oppressed. More than a century later, the wounds of genocide remain open in Namibia. The Herero lost their land, wealth, and way of life. Their descendants remain dispossessed. Much of Namibia's fertile land is still owned by descendants of German settlers. The genocide shattered social structures and erased traditions. The fight for justice continues. In 2021, Germany acknowledged the genocide and pledged aid, but not direct reparations. Many Herero and Nama leaders rejected the offer, demanding true restorative justice and the return of ancestral lands. The struggle is about more than money. It's about dignity, memory, and the repatriation of stolen remains. Their resilience is a testament to their refusal to let history be settled with a handshake. The fight is for their history, identity, and future. Justice remains unfinished business. The Herero and Nama genocide warns us of the dangers of forgetting. For a century, the world chose silence. For the victims, forgetting was never an option. Remembering is justice, an act of defiance against erasure. This history is not just Namibia's or Germany's. It is a lesson for all humanity. The path from Namibia's camps to Nazi Europe is direct, paved by the same racist ideologies. True reconciliation demands truth, apology, and repair. We must listen to the silenced, unearth-buried stories and challenge comfortable narratives. By remembering, we honour the dead, empower the living, and vow never again.